This is, I figured this is because this is our second interview. I wanted to do something a little bit different, and I thought maybe, and because you have this perfect name for your podcast of words, images, and worlds, um, I thought I would show to your viewers a very simple graphic storytelling exercise that I show to kids.
Hmm.
So for most of your adult viewers, this is all going to come as pretty come off as fairly didactic stuff. But for kids, it can be sometimes it can be pretty new. And what I'm do it's based on a exercise that I created in a book I made called Bad Kitty Makes Comics. It's a
Hmm.
chapter
Hmm.
from the book because in my journeys visiting schools, I have come to learn that for a lot of kids who love comics, who love to read comics, and are really curious about making comics, the biggest obstacle for them is that they don't feel like they know how to draw. And it's a setback that prevents them from trying.
Hmm.
So this is an exercise on how you can make comics if you don't know how to draw, because really comics are just another form of storytelling.
Absolutely.
Demonstrate this, I'm going to flip over to my handy dandy, fancy schmancy, best investment I've made in the last 5 years document camera.
Love it. Love it.
I will show you how you can make comics if you don't know how to draw. Now, what's great about the name of this podcast is that it is words, images, and worlds. And what I thought I'd do is begin by creating the world. This is the world in comics. Everything that's going to happen is going to take place inside of this box, although the professional vernacular is panel. Everything's going to happen in here. Now I'm going to create a character. And all I really need to do is make a dot. If you can hold a pen or a pencil, you can make a dot. And we can pretend that this dot is, well, just a dot. There are certainly stories where the character is a dot. Um, we can also pretend that this is somebody who's standing very, very far away. But for the purpose of this exercise, I'm going to say this is an ant, just a tiny ant. Now, if I was to take this environment and this character, and I was to describe what's happening with just words alone, it would read, once upon a time, there was an ant. The end.
Hmm.
Not exactly compelling literature. So I'm going to do something that's really important in stories. I'm going to have give this ant, this character, something to say. And I'm just going to have it say, hello. And now we have a story that would read with just words. Once upon a time, there was an ant who said hello. The end. We can do more. So to do more, I'm going to go to a new page and I'm going to create a panel, but I'm going to do it on the top left because I know that I'm going to add more panels to this story. And there's my ant. Now, to make things more interesting, I'm going to have this ant say something different than before. This time I'm going to have this ant say, I'm lonely.
Hmm.
And this is pretty critical because what I've done is I've really created the character. I had a character that was just an ant, but now I'm defining it because we know something about this ant because he's telling us that he's lonely. We have a story that begins once upon a time, there was an ant who said, I'm lonely. We're going to add to our story by adding another panel. And here I'm going to draw my first ant. And now I'm going to create a second ant because this gives me the opportunity to have these two ants develop a relationship. And not only that, but a dialogue. So I'm going to have the second ant say, do you want to play? So now I have a story that begins, once upon a time, there was an ant who said, I'm lonely. A second ant came along and asked, do you want to play? I'm going to add another panel because I'm also going to add the third and possibly most important component to storytelling. because I'm going to have that first ant now say no.
Hmm.
Here I have a story that begins. Once upon a time, there was an ant who said, I'm lonely. A second ant came along and said, do you want to play? And the first ant said, no. What I've created here is a conflict, a problem that needs to be resolved. And this is where I tell kids that they come in because now it is their task to add as many panels as they want in order to find the solution to this problem, to this conflict, as to why this first ant said no and what can happen between these two. And we can do this simply by answering some of the questions that we can pose ourselves, like, why is this first ant lonely? Where did the second ant come from? Why did this first ant say no when he originally said, I'm lonely? And we can do a lot with these panels. We can have the two ants to simply talk to each other, but I could also add more ants.
Mm-hmm.
I can also add another ant who's very big. And I can also even go so far as to add a bird just to make things interesting. However we want to tell our story. And if each kid took this scenario that I created and added as many panels as they wanted until they got to the solution they are comfortable with, every kid is going to come up with a completely different answer and a completely different story. That is my exercise on storytelling using words and pictures, even if you don't feel comfortable drawing the pictures part.
I love it. I love it. I love a good story, and I love the good story beats, and what a great way to merge images and the narrative that way.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a good, I love doing it, and I don't do it often as you might think, with large groups, because boy, kids come up with some wild solutions, wild ideas and stuff, especially the ones who, sometimes you do get kids who do kind of know how to draw, and then they start to really add in their own elements and their own personalities to the frames and the panels and make something wonderful every single time.
Cool. Very, very cool. You mentioned you do this with school visits, is that right?
Yeah, one of the great opportunities that people like me who make children's books have is that we get this opportunity to meet our readers and
Mhm.
to do so by visiting schools. Um, I actually don't do this one often because this one requires pencil and pen and paper. And sometimes I'm meeting with hundreds and hundreds of kids at a time in an auditorium. So this is more of a workshop exercise.
Mhm.
Um, but this is an opportunity that doesn't come to a lot of comics creators, certainly any of the creators who work in the sort of adult genres and such, that I get, where I can meet with, if I did this every day, I'd meet with thousands of my readers every week. It's kind of a fun opportunity, and I learn a lot
Yeah,
from these kids. Some of my books would not exist if not for my having been in the environment where my readers are to see what their worlds are like.
love it. Love it. Love it.